There was, I always found myself scared of some Genesis songs as a kid. When I was a kid and I was maybe 7 or 8 listening to this track in particular, I found it a little bit spooky. Maybe I saw the music video on MTV and then I kind of just knew it was sort of spooky. But I just think that like Phil Collins, his music was a little bit more upbeat, a little more positive, friendly. I was never scared of anything on No Jacket Required or But Seriously. Maybe I Don't Care Anymore or Through These Walls or Do You Care? That was maybe a little spooky, but I do remember being scared of Home by the Sea, Mama especially, and Tonight. I remember, thinking this song was a little bit eerie and spooky. It actually wasn't until much later in life when I really began to appreciate this song. So if there are scary Phil Genesis songs, I think this is one of them. But what I wanted to say, what I wanted to talk about was one of the big things about the song that I was just thinking about is the use of it live. I always felt like it was never given a fair shake live. Now, let me just clarify. I love this song. I think this is a great, great song. The extended version, the album version is unbelievable. There is this kind of, there's this style that Phil has. Phil uses a lot on his records and Genesis on their later records where there was this kind of like repeated riff either on the synthesizer or the drum machine or usually both. Stuff like on Take Me Home, stuff on Mama, for example, Man on the Corner, In the Air Tonight. You take In the Air Tonight, for example, there's the CR78 drum loop that's happening, and then there's the pads. And the same kind of thing is happening here on Tonight. I mean, this is almost like the Genesis version of In the Air Tonight, where there is just this kind of like weird ping-ponging that's happening. It sounds like there's like maybe a Linn drum happening or some sort of drum machine. If you know what it is, let me know. And then there's that, the kind of the three notes repeated by Tony, again, similar to I Can't Dance a little bit. But there's these like sounds where kind of Phil would create this atmosphere with a drum machine playing this kind of very unique drum loop, like on Take Me Home, or something very, very straightforward, like on In the Air Tonight or Mama. And then they would add these elements. But what makes these like kind of post-prog, pre-pop, proggy, art rock, new wave sound, it's just these songs that can go on forever. So it's one of my favorite Genesis songs, I think, for that reason. And it's the same reason why Take Me Home is one of my favorite songs as well. I also really like Man on the Corner, In the Air Tonight. It's just this like subtle groove that you lock into, and it's kind of like a movie, right? It sets a scene. It's like this drone, if you will, kind of sets the stage for the song, and then everything else becomes unpredictable, like when Mike hits the distortion guitar or when the real drums come in, because you hear these rototoms occasionally, and then as the song gets in, I think it's on the second chorus where the real drums come in. Very similar to Mama. It's very similar to In the Air Tonight where real drums come in. And again, I love when Phil marries the real drums with the drum machines, like on Do You Remember, right? There is a constant 808 sound happening, but then there's like a rim shot and a ride cymbal. Okay, going back to live. Sorry, I deviated a little bit. Why I feel like it never got a fair shake on the live tour. On the Invisible Touch tour, it was just put somewhere in the middle. It never really seemed to make sense to me. On the subsequent tours, it had this weird thing where it ended and it was like, oh, and then into Invisible Touch. That was always so shaky and ragged for me. It never flowed nicely. It was kind of like that weird, like fading lights into cinema show transition they did recently. I have never been a big fan of it. I think that they're two separate songs. I mean, Invisible Touch is like a fun love song or bad love song, but in Tonight is way more dark and moody, like Home by the Sea, which is where it was closer in the Invisible Touch tour. But in the last two tours, I never really liked how they had it kind of transition into Invisible Touch. I know that people say that that's just, what they got used to doing. It was kind of like you didn't know it was coming. It was a good little trick. I've never been a huge fan of the way that Phil would kind of awkwardly transition between like You Can't Hurry Love into Two Hearts, I think it is, into Studio. Is that right? How all that worked? I can't remember. I mean, maybe like you tried a couple times, but here's my thinking with Tonight. I think that Tonight would have been better as a show opener. I mean, you look at 2007, what was it? It was, Turn It On Again. Okay, so nothing beats Turn It On Again. That's a great opener. But maybe as a second song, it's very similar to what they did with No Son of Mine. Maybe in 1992, it could have been a better show opener than Land of Confusion. Land of Confusion was a good show opener, but I think maybe in the most recent tour in 2022-ish, I feel like it would have really been cool to have it open with Tonight, just because it's talking about tonight, right? And they were indoor shows, so it was already dark. And it's the kind of thing where, you remember when they opened with Mama in 1986, there was that drum machine, that Lindrum, distorted Lindrum. It was playing for like, I want to say it's like 4 or 5 minutes, as it's like the lights go down, the audience knows something's happening, Daryl and Chester come out, then the band comes out, then Phil starts singing. But it's like 4 or 5 minutes of just that drum machine. I feel like they could have done something on the latest tour. Opening with like Behind the Lines and Turn It On Again was unbelievable in 2007. But like it was a little bit of a recycle on the latest tour. So I think that Tonight always would have been a really cool opener. In my opinion, it's a hit song. Everybody knows it. But you're not giving away the big songs like I Can't Dance or Invisible Touch or Throwing It All Away until later in the set. So I feel like it would have been a great opener or a second song. Let me know what you think. Let's look at some stats. Always surprised me that this song was a single. Oh, I have the 12-inch single. It's downstairs. I forgot to bring it up for this review. My apologies. Anyway, that was a really exciting find at a record store because I hadn't seen it before. But it has a very ominous cover. I really like it. It's black and white. So the working title of this song we know is Monkey Zulu. There's a story about that. What is it? Okay, so it's the second track on the album, not the second single, however. It was it was the last single. It was even after Throwing It All Away. I didn't realize that. So Invisible Touch, Throwing It All Away, In Too Deep, Land of Confusion, Tonight. I didn't realize that. Okay, that makes sense because it's not the obvious single. You'd almost even hear Anything She Does as being a more obvious single than this song. There is a truncated version. The album version is 8 minutes and 50 seconds, but the single version is 4 minutes and 32 seconds. It's the outro of the very like the Brazilian, very much like Abacab. One of my favorite Genesis sounds. We could do a great mixtape of that, some Abacab stuff, Home by the Sea, Mama, the Brazilian, Tonight, just that kind of industrial 80s sound. I love that. Oh, In Too Deep. There is a lyrical reference to In Too Deep. Is that on purpose? I don't know. It's interesting to note that this song was a little bit of an improvisation when recording and writing it beforehand. And really, it really didn't take shape until the recording process. And even when that process was finished, the Monkey Zulu reference is like the monkey is what Phil is singing and is improvising lyrics before they had an idea for the song. And then the Zulu, I think, was the second part, what became sort of the bridge. And so there was this piecing together that happened. We have this marimba sound. We have this drum machine that's repeating over and over. This is really, it's kind of similar to how songs are recorded today or written today, that they're written in the box, which means they're written in the DAWs and Pro Tools and Logic, where you have all these cool pieces. I have this drum loop. I'm going to put it on an infinite amount of times. I have a melody that I like, tonight. I have another melody, or I want to try a solo, and then they kind of just piece it together and chop it up. So they did that back in the 80s, which I think is pretty cool. Just one more thing, going back to that live problem I had with it, the fact that I never thought it got a great spot in the set. I think the band maybe just didn't think it was a big enough song, or I think maybe I'm projecting this, or maybe Tony has said it before, but that maybe they didn't think it was exciting enough of a track. Like, it's a good album track. It's a kind of a nice number 2. But maybe it's a little bit too slow. Like, it's not slow enough to be a ballad, but it's not fast enough to be upbeat. It's probably not even as fast as No Son of Mine. And so for that reason, maybe it drags a bit. And if you're going 8 to 9 minutes on a live show as an opener, it's maybe not great. So maybe that's why they truncated it a little bit and used it as like a ominous intro into Invisible Touch. That's maybe just my theory, is that maybe the band wasn't crazy about it from a live standpoint. From an album track, it's really, really great. But because it relies so much on loops and repetitive stuff, that maybe, and it doesn't have that natural build that Mama did or In the Air Tonight did, that maybe just from a live standpoint, they found it got boring. I don't know. Maybe you know. Let me know what you think about this song, and let me know if there's some interesting facts about this song that I didn't mention. Thanks for watching.